Hi, I'm Liz from Focus Training. I'm here today with Isioma Nwabuzor, who's Senior Vice President and Associate General Counsel at Baird. Isioma, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
The concept that we're going to be talking about today is bringing your authentic self to all of your different roles, professionally, in the community, etc. I've seen a lot of organizations who have been approaching this as either an organizational cultural initiative or also as a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. I feel like organizations are kind of in a toss up about where they're trying to align that with. So I want to hear from you. You're in a part of a lot of different organizations. Our paths have crossed in so many different forms and fashions over the past 4 years that we've known each other, from DEI work to work between our two organizations and work that we partner with on a women's group here in Milwaukee. But I want to hear from you. What has been your experience with bringing your authentic self in all of these different settings? What have organizations done well? And what does it really look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's you're absolutely right. So I think we've seen this grow within the past 2 years in particular. And I think it's a multifaceted approach. I think as an individual, you have to have a certain level of self awareness, right? When it means showing up as your authentic self, right? You have to own who you are, you have to be proud of who you are, and you have to stand in that comfortably. And so there's that side to it. But then there is also a level of organizational awareness. Quite frankly, every organization and group is not positioned to allow everyone to be their authentic self. They need a ton of cultural overhauling, a ton of infrastructure renewal. They need, a top down overhauls. And so all that to say, again, every organization is not positioned for that. And I think that's a huge misconception that we've seen in the last 2 years, right? Organizations coming out, or people approaching their organizations and saying, hey, we want this huge cultural and DEI shift, but it just doesn't happen overnight, right? And it takes a lot of internal work. But when organizations are positioned to do that, whether that be through, so in my organization, for example, we have our resource groups, which have really been our champions of inclusion and diversity and equity and cultural change. And when you have those sorts of infrastructures in place, it makes this whole concept of showing up as your authentic self a lot easier, because oftentimes these sort of organizational infrastructures serve as the liaison between the employees, the associates, the constituents, and the leadership. And they can help galvanize a lot of cultural efforts forward. And so, again, personally, I've done the work to make myself comfortable in who I am and all that I bring to the table. And quite frankly, with a lot of organizations that I serve, I have a take it or leave it approach, right? You either take me as I am or leave me completely. And then I think organizations that do well at fostering this have implemented the appropriate infrastructures to make sure that, whether through resource groups or whatever sort of liaison and buffer, the right message is getting to the leadership to ensure that employees can show up as who they are every day.
I love that. And I think you made such a perfect statement in there. Your approach is always take me as I am or don't take me at all, which I mean just speaks to your presence and your confidence and everything that you do to begin with, which is something I've always really admired about you.
Thank
And
you.
also, I've seen that, those examples of, or don't take me at all. So sometimes organizations have said, bring your whole self to work. And then people show up
Mhm.
as their real authentic self, their raw self. And you sometimes hear the moments of like, but not like that.
Mhm.
So, have you experienced moments like that in your past? Some of those organizations that have said, all right, maybe we won't take you then. How has that happened for you? What does that look like? And how have you gotten past that?
Yeah. So, first thing I'll say again, my approach is very much take it or leave it. And the benefit of having that approach is that people see you for who you are right off the bat. Right. And so it allows a certain level of transparency, and people get comfortable with who you authentically are. And so, fortunately for me, I haven't had a ton of those circumstances. What I will say is I've had instances where people have probably been taken aback by my candidness. Right. But I think we're in a time and a place and a space where we have to all, whether it be an organization, whether it be an employer, whether it be as an individual, get very comfortable being uncomfortable. right? And I think that's something that we haven't grappled with historically. But discomfort allows room for progress, right? Discomfort allows room for change. And so it's not a matter of being comfortable in all things and with all people and how people show up, but understanding that discomfort aids to the diversity that we need to see. And so again, I haven't had a ton of those instances, but where people do face that, my recommendation is there's so much wellness and wholeness and fulfillment that comes in being your authentic self. And if you are in an organization or, with an employer who for some reason wants you to tone that down or simmer it down for their comfort, ultimately that has an impact on your wellness, right? And your mental health. And I think with my generation, I'm a millennial, we've seen more than ever where people are really ready to leave it. Right. And so that's something to don't be ashamed to walk away. Not everything is for everyone. And if you feel that you're in some sort of professional environment, well, you can't be your full self. Well, find one that works for you, right? Find one. So that would be my advice to anyone who has to sort of tackle or encounter that sort of issue.